Well, hello there. Long time no speak. Um, my last video, I think I loaded about 2 weeks ago or something, and I don't know, some sort of issue with YouTube just wasn't loading, and I kind of threw a little hissy fit, threw my toys out the pram, and said, "No, I'm not doing any more videos," or just can't be bothered for a little bit. But you know, we're at a stage now where obviously the finals, we know what's going to happen. We know who's going to be playing. I mean, we've known all year really, but we actually know now. And I guess I just wanted to kind of talk just through just generally my thoughts on sort of the playoffs so far, um, what I think is going to happen in the finals, and maybe a tiny bit on LeBron, but we'll see. Really, obviously with my Spurs, and again that was another reason I didn't do videos. I didn't want to talk about what was going on. It was so depressing in some ways. The way that we came out in game one, we played really well. Everything was clicking, everything was rolling, and then obviously Kawhi goes down, and you know that made a difference. I think one thing that was really underrated that not really many people talked about was Tony Parker's absence. And yes, I mean Tony Parker wasn't necessarily gonna be the difference maker. I mean he might have won us a game. You don't know. He had a few games like that against Memphis, and you know he definitely seemed to be more sprightly than he looked in recent years. Um, but just having a veteran point guard who's able to run the offense and control pace of the game, you saw that in sort of part of the Houston series, and then really bad against Golden State. Without Parker and Leonard, Simmons, Dejounte Murray, Carl Anderson, Danny Green, and obviously Paddy Mills and Manu. They're handling the ball, and Paddy Mills didn't have a great series, unfortunately. Danny Green played his usual ball, which, as I've said time and time again, I think is poor. Um, Carl Anderson, I'm still not sold. I don't know. The jury's out on him, and I think Murray shows a lot of promise. But the kid's 19, 20 years old. You can't expect him, especially with the amount of time he's had this year on the court. He's not going to come in and control pace, especially against Steph Curry. And a point guard of that nature. So I think that was one thing that really hurt us. Obviously, LaMarcus Aldridge. And we got nothing inside from Gasol either. Lee was alright, then obviously he got hurt. And Dedmon, I don't know what happened with Dedmon. He obviously had a good season. He was really showing signs, but he couldn't get off the bench. So I wonder if something's going on with him and Pop. But LaMarcus Aldridge was, he's not a Spur, and he was poor. He should have been relishing that opportunity, I think, to take over in Kawhi's absence. And the guy can't go left. He's soft as anything else, and he's insistent on putting the ball on the floor when that's really not his game. I mean, when he's not thinking and not in his head, and he just catches, turns, and shoots, he's lights out. But when he's like trying to put the ball on the floor, I mean, he wasn't doing it against Ryan Anderson in the first series. So when he's going up against Draymond Green and even JaVale McGee, who can really protect the rim, what does he think he's going to do? And yeah, he just was going away from his game. I mean, in fairness, maybe the Spurs could have run more pick and roll, pick and pop action for him, but he was just bad. And it's like someone said, even some of the shots that he made, they looked accidental. He like fumbled it into the basket. He was really shaky. And it's like Popovich said at the end, in his final press conference. You got to give the Warriors credit. I mean, they are fucking good. All my years of watching the NBA, I don't know if I've ever seen a team with as much talent. That's what I've got. I mean, even if you look at like the big threes that Boston, Miami, I mean even Chicago and the Lakers earlier on. Maybe the Showtime Lakers is the last team, maybe, but even then, I mean, they've got four of the legitimately top 15, 20 players in the league, and they play together and they play well and they play without ego and they defend. They're not just an offensive team who will just outscore you. They work together on defense. And Steph Curry's not the strongest defender, but credit to him, he goes after it defensively. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green are phenomenal defenders, and Durant is an underrated defender as well. He might not have necessarily the best lateral quickness or obviously core strength, but his length. I think he's quite a smart defensive player, and you know what he does. I think he's got kind of wiry strength. He is stronger than he looks, and obviously I think he led the team in block shots during the regular season. Though obviously he did miss a lot of games. They're tough, Golden State, and bringing us to the finals. What's going to happen against them and LeBron, and I suppose Kyrie and Kevin Love are very much chipping in as well. But let's face it, it's them against LeBron. LeBron's going to be the difference maker, and really all eyes are on him. There's that. It's the constant conversation. All you see on social media at the moment is LeBron versus MJ, and obviously he passed Jordan in playoff points last night, which is a tremendous achievement. And okay, is Jordan a better scorer than LeBron? Of course, but to knock the longevity and the continued excellence over such a period of time at the top level, you can't take away from. There's nothing you can say to delegitimize in any way that accomplishment. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think in my heart, my head is telling me the Warriors, right? But my heart is telling me the Cavs. Basketball on paper, anyone who's played, you go into games, and ultimately it's still whatever you want to say about the two teams going in, what you've done in the past, what's happened, who you've got playing for you. It's still 5-on-5 on a court with a ball, and 5-on-5, you've got to go and take that from LeBron, 4 times out of 7. And he's surrounded by I think the best team he's ever had, a team really, really well constructed and designed for his skill set. So if Kyrie keeps playing the way Kyrie's playing as well, Westbrook is still probably my favourite player to watch, but I think Kyrie might be my second favourite. I don't know. I love watching Cavs games, man. Obviously, I'm trying to take all of LeBron in that I can, but also just watching Kyrie is just awesome. But Kevin Love's probably playing the best ball of his career, and this is an interesting point. They were talking about it in the game of the day. Obviously, that his games in Minnesota didn't mean as much, and therefore this means more. And I completely agree with that. I think when you're playing at an inferior level and with inferior people, and you put up numbers. Anyone knows that at the end of the day, if you're playing for the best team, if you're making your team win, if you're on the team that wins and you're putting up numbers, that's when you're the best player and you're the most dominant and the most influential player. And I think the difference between a guy putting up 25 and 13 on a team that wins 30, 35 games versus a guy who puts up, I think he averaged 21 and 11, 20 and 11 this season on a team that, is going to, it was a final team and championship contender. That is so much more valuable to me, and that says so much more. And even though he's the third best player, it's interesting. You look at what's going on with Boston at the moment. I think you can tell a lot about a team by the strength of their best player, and ultimately you're not going to be a championship team in the NBA if you don't have a superstar level player. And Boston, if Isaiah Thomas is your best player, I'm sorry, you're not going to win the NBA title. If he's your second best player, okay. And I was kind of having this conversation with my mate the other day, and you can kind of do it for players. It's an interesting thing. I, for years, said Garnett couldn't be the best player on the championship team. I thought the same about McGrady. I thought, again, if they're your number 2 option, Carmelo Anthony, if they're your number 2 option, then you've got a sick team, and they are going to flourish in that role. But when they're the go-to guy, that there's a different caliber of player that can take you to that point. And I think again, even a guy like John Wall, who's phenomenal, or Jimmy Butler, if that's your second best player, you're onto something. And there's only a handful of guys in the league, really. I think I've said their names before. 5 or 6 guys in the league I think can carry a team and be that kind of 1A on a championship team. And then everyone else, they need to be, and that's the way the NBA is going, man. It's all about clusters of stars, sort of grouping together and forming these super teams, and that's what we've got to enjoy and look forward to. As I said, my head's telling me Warriors, my heart's telling me Cavs. I think I'd rather the Cavs win. As I've said before, I'm just not a massive fan of Golden State's kind of act and attitude and just general way that they are. And obviously with Kevin Durant going there, the way that it all came about, you know, it just sits a bit. Is it? For many reasons, I think I will be rooting for the Cavs, and maybe that's why my heart is a bit irrational in that sense. But as I said, I think you just got to, you know, can Durant, Curry, all those guys, they've got one ball to share between them. They've got every time they score, they have to give possession of the ball up. You know, it is a game of basketball, and Cleveland have got by far the best player and the smartest player and the most physically dominant player. It's going to be interesting, man. All I pray to God is that it goes 7 games. Triple overtime, game 7, Cavs win. That would be perfect. I think anything short is going to be a massive issue for the NBA because, let's face it, even though I know statistically that they were talking about there were more blowouts than last year's playoffs or whatever, and I think the 3 ball has a lot to do with why you see a lot of these kind of blowouts and you know, kind of crazy sort of one lopsided games. But I don't know, there was something about the season that just felt really, really stale. More so than ever, I think the gulf between the top 2 teams. There's always favourites. There's always teams that you kind of know are going to make it, and you can usually predict the conference finals, but there's usually one out of the conference finals you didn't predict, and usually the team's roads to that point is a lot more challenging than it was this season. And you can kind of throw stats and whatever you want at me or you like, but I watched pretty much every game, or at least highlights of every game, and as much games as I could. And you know, and that's how I feel. And there's a lot of other people who I think feel the same way. So the NBA needs it, we need it, I need it, and yeah, here's hoping for good finals. But I've kind of overrun. I don't really want to keep this going too much longer. I'm kind of glad I got a lot off my chest. It's been way too long. I'll try and do this a little bit more regularly, but I've just got other things going on, and let's face it, these kind of videos are for me and kind of to be at my leisure anyway. That was sort of the point. So I'll do it when I do them. But yeah, I've enjoyed this one. Hopefully you have as well, and I'll see you later.